Hey guys, Chrisspy here. Welcome back to my channel. This is the creepiest transformation that I've ever done. Now, if you're asking yourself why I did this, well, I just saw a tattoo of the evil witch from Snow White and decided to challenge myself creatively and see if I could transform into her. So let's get into it. So we begin by gluing down the brows. I just take a glue stick and really brush it back and forth between my brows. Then I take a spoolie and brush the hairs in the direction that they grow, making sure that they're really flat to the skin. And next I go over it with the glue stick one more time so that they're nice and slick. Next I take some translucent powder and pack it on top. Now I'm taking this Derma Blend color corrector, and this is going to help so that the brows don't look blue underneath the concealer. And I always want to rush this step, you guys, but it's definitely worth taking your time on. Next, I'm taking this Oma Beauty Stay Woke concealer because it's nice and pigmented, and I'm going to put it right over the brows until you can't see anything. I started to map out the face with eyeshadow, which is what I normally do, but I figured I was going to cover it with paint anyway, so I might as well just map it out with some paint. So I took my Mehron Paradise palette, the basic palette, and the Sigma Winged Liner E06 brush, which is a really awesome little brush, and I just started mapping out the face. This is probably the most important step and probably one of the most challenging steps, is just mapping things out and seeing where they're gonna sit on your face essentially. Because if you get the proportions wrong, then it just doesn't read as well. So I try and take my time with this step. At this point, I really had no idea if this was gonna work, but I was like, just gonna roll with it anyways and see what happened. But I decided to just start shading and see what happens. For the shading, I'm using the L210 brush from Luminous, and I'm taking Carbon eyeshadow, which is a matte black eyeshadow from MAC. And then I'm also taking Anastasia Beverly Hills Cypress Umber, which is a brown eyeshadow. So I'm shading really deep with that brown. You could use a brown or a gray, but you're gonna wanna keep the black for the darkest areas. That way it has those nice value range that you want, because if you use the black everywhere, then certain areas won't look as deep. So you guys will see I'm kind of jumping around here. I started shading one side of the face, then I went back over to the other side again with my small angle brush and my black paint, and I started mapping out that cheek over there, and then I decided to take the black paint and black it out, and that kind of brought things, I guess, up a step for me. Like I started to see at least the face shape a little bit, which always makes me excited during this process. So next I'm continuing to shade, and I'm really packing the shadow on the areas that are the darkest. And it probably doesn't make a lot of sense, especially because I'm jumping around and stuff, but you guys gotta remember that I'm looking at that picture, so I'm just copying what I'm seeing there. When I'm copying a photo, it's at an angle, so it's kind of an optical illusion, so you have to make up for the creases in your face so that it appears a certain way from a certain angle. But after doing this, I realized that you could probably do this on the nose just straight forward and the whole face, and it would translate as well. Sometimes you can't do that. Like when I've done my cartoon characters, they definitely have to be angled a certain way. I actually was working on a different task, and to take a break, I decided to just go sit in front of the camera and try out this transformation. And it's funny because I go into every single transformation not really knowing if it's gonna work. So you guys will see it once it starts to come together. I'm like super shocked and amused by it, and equally creeped out. But this was a really fun one because I never really have any expectations, so it's always kind of a surprise. Down here by the mouth, it got a little tricky because there was only a few teeth and I wasn't sure exactly where to put everything because this character has a long chin, but you have to, compensate for the lips because his lips were above mine. But I actually ended up changing it towards the end, and I liked what I did here first, which is putting them just above my natural lips. Next, I'm going ahead and shading what would be, I guess, the witch's upper lip, and I'm making sure to keep the darkest of the black only at the very bottom of the teeth because I don't want to lose that gradient effect. Oh, and then I'm also shading underneath the nose for that shadow right there. So occasionally I had to puff out my chubby little cheeks so that I could get those lines nice and straight. And I actually had to curve the line too so that the jaw looked straight and it didn't have the actual shape of my cheek. So this entire time I've just been shading with eyeshadow. I just think it's easier to shade with than the face paint because I guess I'm more familiar with it and you have more leeway. So now that everything is pretty laid out, I decided to go in with the Mehron black face paint from the Paradise Basic palette and just fill out the rest of my face. Initially, I left a little line there for the outline of the face because that's how the tattoo had it, but I actually ended up covering it because it didn't really make sense once I put my hood on. And you guys, this is when I was just like, what have I done? So last but not least, I went back in with a black paint and just went over all of my lines to redefine and darken them because they got a little bit lost in all of the shading. And then I also went back and added some shading to the nostrils just because I felt like it was looking a little unfinished. And then I was ready to put on my hood and I became this scary ass witch from Snow White. Alright you guys, so this is the completed look. I hope that you enjoyed this transformation and hanging out with me today. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, comment below, make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you're not already, and I will see you in my next video.